Well, I mean, yeah, there's some pretty scary stories. I mean, just have to go north of Austria, which is obviously Germany. And there are three stories, I think, that tell a really good story. The first one was reported in Die Welt, which is the equivalent of The Guardian in Germany. And it's essentially about the ritual humiliation of children who are asked to go to the front of the class and state their vaccination status daily. Those who are vaccinated are applauded. Those who are not have to explain why they're not. So that's the one story I think that really kind of should raise an alarm bell for people who are for the mandate.
The mom of a local 9-year-old boy is demanding his substitute teacher be fired after she says that a teacher taped a face mask to her son's face when he did not wear it properly in the classroom. She spoke to us under the condition that we not use her name or show her face, worried her son could be further traumatized at school, but wanting other parents to know what is happening in one fourth grade classroom.
I was furious. I was scared for my son on what kind of long-term effect it's going to have on him socially. The fact that the entire class was laughing.
This mom of a fourth grade student at Reedham Elementary in Mountain's Edge says his substitute teacher stepped way over the line when the 9-year-old failed to properly wear his mask in class.
He went to get a sip of water, forgot to put the mask on. Teacher then did not tell him to put it back on or send him to the office. She instead pulled him up in the front of the classroom in front of all of the students, and she then taped the mask across the top of his face.
The mom says the sub added a second layer of tape from his nose to his forehead, and with tape still on his face, he went to the office to pick up homework he'd forgotten at home and his dad dropped off.
When he went to the office to pick up that homework is when one of the administrators noticed the tape on his face.
Alarmed, that administrator took the tape off of the child and alerted the principal, who went to the classroom to investigate, filling out this report.
And she saw another student who she thought was my son with tape on their face as well.
This mom later asked her son had other students also had their masks taped to their face. He said yes. It's been happening in his classroom since the beginning of the school year.
A mother in Colorado Springs says her child was forced to tape her mask to her face at school. Woman says it happened after the student's mask kept falling off in class. This is a picture of it. Academy District 20 says it started getting reports about this happening at Chinook Trail Middle School last week, but it's not clear exactly what happened in this girl's case.
Because of social media, we now have so many other voices in the mix that may not have been involved. And so now there's misinformation that's mingled in with the actual fact.
The school district is asking for patience as the investigation goes on. It hopes to have more information for everyone by the end of this week.
Editor-in-Chief of the Post Millennial. She joins us now. Libby, thank you so much for being here. Your son is one of those kids. It's November, soon to be December. What is this all about?
Yeah, so I had actually heard about this and I called my son's school in Brooklyn to find out what was going on. And the fact of the matter is that they have no metric. I asked, when are the kids going to be coming in for lunch? Under what temperature will the kids be coming in? And they said that it was fluid, that they just didn't know, and they had absolutely no plan as to when the kids would be allowed to eat lunch inside.
And the students still required to wear masks inside and outside in New York City schools, correct?
Yes, in both locations, yes. So as soon as they're finished eating lunch, they have to put their masks back on. And what I really found surprising is that there's absolutely no guidance as to when the restrictions will be lifted. They had no trouble enforcing restrictions, implementing those restrictions, telling us all exactly how strict they were going to be with regard to masking and social distancing, but there are no plans in place and there's no guidance at all as to when those will be lifted and when the kids can go back to going to school like normal.
And no guidance on what happens when it's not 37 degrees as it was on that particular day, 20 degrees or 10 degrees.
Exactly.
Well, here we reached out, we got a statement from the New York Department of Education. Here's what they say about these restrictions. Schools and students always have the option to have their meals inside, including if there's inclement weather like rain, high or low temperatures, high winds, and more. Thanks to our amazing food service workers, schools can quickly pivot to serve lunch in a variety of formats and in various locations if needed. Was that your experience? Did you have the option to bring your son inside?
No. As a matter of fact, they haven't communicated with parents at all about what's going on. I only heard about this from my son, and then as you did, I read the exposés and I called the school to find out what was going on. The dean of students that I spoke to said that the kids come into the lunchroom and then they're quickly ushered outside. When I talked to my son about it, he said there was no room inside for everybody, and I asked the dean about that, and she said that that's absolutely true. There's not enough room for everyone inside. There are tables outside, but there's not enough tables outside for everyone. Mm-hmm. So most of the kids will sit on the ground and eat their lunch and then put their mask back on. And I think there's no problem having recess outside if you're running around, but forcing kids to sit on the ground to eat lunch outdoors in very cold weather, especially so many kids aren't going to want to wear their coats. They don't zip up. I think that it's sort of a recipe for disaster. And as we're trying to get rid of COVID, what other illnesses are we inviting in by getting these kids cold, you know?
And then they get outside and they huddle with their friends.
Right.
You can't make it up.
Right.
Justin Spiro on Twitter asked parents to share the restrictions being placed on their children in schools. And yeah, the replies are heartbreaking. I'm going to read them. This is the school in Oregon, kindergartners. They're sitting on the ground. It's raining, it's chilly. No problem, right? So this was his exact tweet. So many progressives don't understand the restrictions still being placed on children in schools. Many are willfully ignorant. Can we start a list of what kids are experiencing on a daily basis? So I don't know what the initials are. The TK. Have a 5-year-old TK in SD, and obviously his first semester in a formal education setting, received an email from the school principal that he violated he's 5 years old, violated mask policy twice so far. If a third violation occurs, he would be forced to enroll in, I guess, virtual academy, online. We feel the school has been hostile to our little kiddo due to his eloping behavior, leaving the classroom. Think they are using the policy to remove him from on-site education. Trying to work with the school, but it has been a challenge. Has anybody heard of this 3-strike policy? Another one. There are kids on their 2nd or 3rd close contact quarantine this year. That's up to 30 days of missed education. And they are healthy. Close contacts rarely test positive. Close contacts means nothing. Here's another one. 5 minutes of recess taken away if mask slips off your nose. 3rd grade. Another one. My 6-year-old is not allowed to take his mask off for speech therapy. He can't see his therapist demonstrate the mechanics of speech. It is nearly worthless. Severely disabled nonverbal high schooler, masked all day, including for speech sessions. Legally blind, but can't wear her glasses because they fog up. She requires physical assistance to access curriculum, not possible because aides are not allowed to sit close enough. Last year during lockdown, she had Zoom lessons including for occupational therapy and vision, how does the teacher for the visually impaired teach touch typing over Zoom? Another one, my hearing impaired son drew this picture in October. He wears one hearing aid, and you can imagine the challenges he has faced. He went back to school in August 2020. No more masks. I can't hear. New York City state of mind. No access to the school library. Books are being disinfected at school. No field trips. No extracurriculars. Masked sports in MS. I'm not sure what that is. Outdoor lunch all winter. Outdoor lunch all winter. Limited water or no water breaks in class. Facing one direction at lunch or silent lunch. No parents allowed in school. Another one. Water fountains are off at my daughter's school. Masks are required indoors. To get a sip of water, she has to raise 3 fingers for permission. Walk to the back of the room, lower mask, sip, remask, go back to desk. Masks required during PE. When it's inside, she says she can't breathe. I tell her to take her mask off if she ever feels dizzy or unable to breathe, and she says the teachers yell at her. She's scared to get in trouble, scared her teachers won't like her. She tried to hug a friend. They play together after school daily, and a teacher blocked her. Another one. Elementary and middle school kids in Westchester, New York, have to eat their lunch off chairs. The chairs. They sit in one chair and eat lunch off another chair. Despite zero evidence, this does anything except scar them for life. Another one. Water fountains were turned off, breakfast outside, laminated tally on the corner of their desks, where if their masks slipped, they'd be tallied, and 3 tallies equals no free time, at least 20 minutes of the day. Parents can't sit with them at parades, discouraged from entering school. Parents could not attend holiday parties or lunch, although the recommendation was 3 feet apart. They'd be punished for being closer than 6 by the especially ardent devotees of the COVIDian faith. That bothered me a lot. An individual teacher adding to the baseline of restrictions. Another one, being told they are responsible for not killing teachers or grandparents. It's psychological abuse. Another one, being yelled at constantly in school hallways for masks falling beneath their nose. Not know what faces of their peers actually look like. Not being able to socialize at lunch. Depression, low-grade anxiety. Little recall of their life before COVID trauma. Unvaxxed kids being punished for their parents' choices. Weekly testing only for unvaxxed kids. Travel quarantines that only apply to unvaxxed kids. Active othering of unvaxxed kids. Good example would be teacher leading a round of applause after kid announces they are vaxxed.
Government schools are about teaching children not to think. Right. They're about teaching children to be obedient and submissive, and to have your self-esteem be a function of that mediocre person at the front of the room.
Yes.
And the fact that we all have to learn at the same pace, which is deranged.
Deranged.
The fact that you have to get along with people as under gunpoint, whereas nowhere in life are you trapped into a relationship like this, like in schools. It's tantamount to child abuse. Government schools are literal prisons for children and the only place many people encounter violence in their lives. It's a horrible German model, and it's got to be, and thankfully, increasingly states are having a program where the money follows the student instead of following the location.
I come across these tweets or articles about what is happening to American kids in these schools and how it is that parents are not pulling their kids out of these schools because it's not tantamount to abuse, which you just heard on that the guy on Joe Rogan saying that it was tantamount to it is clear, direct child abuse. Your children are being abused in schools that you could possibly send your children to schools that are making them eat outside when it's 40 degrees, sitting on the ground. They eat lunch, one chair, and the other chair, I guess, holds their tray. Okay, my daughter was not able to attend school today because nobody would teach her unmasked. When I confronted the head about continued discrimination against our disabled child, she refused to engage with me on the matter. She has now banned my wife and I from entering school grounds. So a disabled child, no doubt, has an exemption, and this is what they do to that child. And then they ban the parents who want to talk to the school about this discrimination. This is where we are now. There is hardly any morality. There's, any kind of social, contract that we have. It's shredded. They just put it in the shredder. There's no decency. People are being, not only kids, but their parents, adults, humiliated, treated like with such disrespect. It is phenomenal. So, this is not the country I ever grew up in. Never did I see this until the recent years. So something has changed. Clearly, adults feel that it's perfectly fine to abuse children, to treat them with, okay, I'm trying not to curse. If I was a teacher and I saw this in schools, if this was taking place, I could not do it, and I could not remain silent about it. And boy, would other teachers and administrators hear from me, I would quit and I would do everything I could to get parents to take their kids out of schools. Because if I were a teacher today, I would see what's happening. Nothing is going to stop this abuse, and it's going to get worse. I would work to get parents to take their kids out of schools. There was another tweet that I saw today. Why are New York City school kids still forced to do so much remotely? My son had a debate tournament today, which meant spending 7 hours in his bedroom debating kids from other New York City public schools via Zoom. Why? Well, I believe this man is a journalist, New York Times. Yeah, reporter for the New York Times. Okay, look in the mirror, Jesse. Look in the mirror. What are you doing? What are you doing? What kind of reporting are you writing to inform parents, to inform Americans about what's going on? Because if you work for the New York Times, I have no doubt you are lying. You are lying. So that's why this persists. Jesse, maybe you should think about what you're doing, how you live your life, how you collect your money, and then get honest. You, of course, will be fired. So yeah, here's the article. New York City kids still eating school lunch outdoors despite dropping temperatures. Are you kidding? You're not, I mean, wow. Every parent should be unbelievably outraged. But once they know, how could they possibly send their children to school the next day? Kindergartners forced to eat lunch outside in the cold. You want to talk trauma, abuse, indoctrination? What are these children going to be like as they grow up? It's so sad. It's so unbelievably sad that it's tragic. It's beyond, I don't even know of a word that could, it just clearly describe what we're living today. But here, listen to this.
But inside schools, there are often very strict rules. For example, sometimes students are required to eat outside or eat distant from each other, not talk to each other while they're eating. Does the White House want to see those rules lifted as well to get back to a more normal school experience?
Well, schools are taking steps, especially since we've only recently approved through the CDC and FDA vaccines for 5 to 11-year-olds. They're not approved for kids younger than that, to keep their kids safe and keep students safe. I will tell you, I have a 3-year-old who goes to school, sits outside for snacks and lunch, wears a mask inside, and it's no big deal to him. I'm not saying that's the case for everybody, but these are steps that schools are taking to keep kids safe. And I think the vast majority of parents appreciate that. Obviously, we want to get to a point where we're turning to a version of normalcy for everybody, right? Where you're not sending your kids backpack with 7 extra masks, right? Where you're not adding 2 hats so that they're warm outside for a snack. There's no question that's the case. But we also think the most important thing should be safety, the safety of kids, keeping kids in school, which the president is very focused on. And some of these steps, creative steps that schools have taken, have enabled that to be possible.
Okay. I don't know what to do anymore, because I honestly feel like I'm living in a country where there's just no moral foundation. And an awful lot of adults don't even know how to treat children with respect. This is the White House press secretary. Really? Okay. She's got a 3-year-old, and she's absolutely fine with dropping her 3-year-old off, and he's having a snack outside. She's in D.C. Okay, I don't even know how to respond to most of what is going on today, because this is utter, it is so cruel. It clearly is abuse, and it's clear, okay? It's obvious abuse that adults are fine with, and I don't know what to say. When they think it's fine, when she's talking about her 3-year-old going outside, and it's cold in DC, and that's fine. Yeah, obviously we want to get to a point where parents don't have to give their kids 2 hats to wear outside because it's cold. Okay. This is not funny. This is really not funny. This is so sick and so twisted, and I am so feeling the impact of living in such a sick and twisted country. We could only have gotten here if most adults were this just utterly psychopathic, bona fide, clinically, or have psychopathic tendencies. This is so, yeah, I can't believe what we are doing to children. Okay. The links to the articles are below.